Your cortisol levels are not the same as your parents were at your age. Not close. If you're a millennial, your stress response system was built differently. Not because you're weak, not because you can't handle life, like older generations love to say, because of biology. Real, measurable, lab tested biology. Here's the thing: doctors have started calling this a distinct physiological pattern, not a personality trait, not a vibe, a pattern they can see in blood work and saliva samples and brain scans. And once you understand it, a lot of things about your life are going to make a lot more sense. So, if you've ever laid in bed at 11 p.m., bone tired, even though you didn't do anything hard that day, if you've ever finished a vacation more exhausted than when you left, if you've ever wondered why you feel like you're running on empty at 30 when your grandparents were raising 3 kids and working 2 jobs at the same age and somehow seem fine, sit with this one, because there are 3 specific things happening inside a millennial brain that explain almost all of it. Number one, your nervous system got calibrated for threat before you even had a say in it. Number two, your stress hormones never get a real recovery window, not the way earlier generations did. And number three, the one nobody talks about, your body has actually gone quiet in a way that looks like calm, but isn't. We're gonna go through all three, and by the end, you're gonna understand your own exhaustion in a way you never have before. Let's start with number one, threat calibration. Picture this: you're 7 years old, it's September 2001. You don't fully understand what's happening, but you understand that the adults around you are scared. That's the first data point your nervous system logs. Then you grow up a little more, and the 2008 financial crisis hits. Parents losing homes, parents losing jobs, dinner table conversations about money that you were never supposed to hear, but did. That's the second data point. Here's what's actually happening biologically during those years. Your brain, specifically a region called the amygdala, is still developing. The amygdala is your threat detector. It's the part of your brain that decides in a fraction of a second whether something is dangerous. And during childhood and adolescence, that system is being trained by your environment, not trained on purpose, trained by repetition. Every time a kid absorbs adult stress, economic instability, a sense that the world is unpredictable, the amygdala gets a little more sensitive. It gets better at finding threats. Because as far as your body is concerned, it's just doing its job. It's preparing you to survive a world that keeps proving it's unstable. So by the time millennials hit adulthood, a lot of them are walking around with a threat detector that's been quietly turned up since childhood. Not broken, just sensitive. Tuned to a world that, from age 7 onward, kept confirming that things could fall apart fast. That's point one. Now here's where it gets worse. Number two, no recovery window. Your stress response isn't supposed to run all the time. It's supposed to spike, do its job, and then shut off. That's the design. Something threatens you, your body releases cortisol and adrenaline, you deal with the threat, and then your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and brings you back down. Rest, digest, repair. That's how the system was built to work for basically all of human history. Millennials broke that cycle, not on purpose, through technology. Think about your phone for a second. Every notification is a tiny stress spike, not a huge one, a small one, a text you haven't answered, an email that might be bad news, a like count that didn't move the way you wanted. Individually, none of these feel like stress, they feel like nothing. But your body doesn't know the difference between a small spike and a big one when it's happening 50, 80, 100 times a day, with almost no gap in between. Here's the mechanism: your body needs a full return to baseline before the next stressor hits, or the stress response starts stacking. And when it stacks day after day, year after year, it has a name: allostatic load. It's basically your body's running tab of unresolved stress. And millennials are the first generation to accumulate that tab starting in childhood through a school system with early smartphones, then straight into a career built on constant connectivity with almost zero built in recovery time. Older generations got to log off. There was a version of stress that ended when you left the office, when the phone was on the wall in the kitchen, when the news came once at 6 and then stopped. Millennials never fully got that off switch, and a body that never fully powers down never fully repairs. That's why you can rest for a full weekend and still feel tired. It's not that the rest didn't work, it's that the tab was too high to clear in 2 days. Now, here's number three, and this is the part that actually surprised researchers. You'd think all that chronic stress would mean millennials have sky high cortisol all the time, wired, jittery, spiking, but that's not quite what shows up in the data. What shows up instead is something called a blunted cortisol awakening response. Normally, your cortisol should spike shortly after you wake up. That's a good thing. It's your body's natural alarm system, giving you a hit of energy and alertness to start the day. In a lot of millennials, that spike is flattened, weaker than it should be, and a flat morning cortisol curve is associated with one very specific feeling: exhaustion that doesn't respond to sleep, fatigue that feels less like I'm tired and more like I'm running on fumes and I don't know why. This is what chronic prolonged stress actually does over time. It's not that your alarm system stays loud forever. Eventually, the system that's supposed to protect you starts to wear down and go quiet, not because the threat went away, because your body has been sounding the alarm for so long that the alarm itself is breaking. So, put those three things together: a threat detector calibrated too sensitive, starting in childhood, a recovery system that never gets a real gap thanks to constant digital stimulation, and a morning alert system that's gone blunted from years of overuse. That's not laziness. That's not a generation that just needs to toughen up. That's a specific, traceable physiological pattern. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. If you're watching this and thinking, okay, that explains a lot, but what do I actually do about it? Stay with me for one more minute. Because the same research that maps out this pattern also points to what actually helps rebuild it. The good news is that the nervous system is not fixed. It's not a life sentence. The same neuroplasticity that let your environment shape your stress response as a kid means your environment can reshape it now as an adult. It's slower, it's not a 5 minute fix, but it's real. The biggest lever isn't meditation apps or productivity hacks, it's recovery windows. Actual gaps where your body gets to fully return to baseline. That means stretches of time, even short ones, with no notifications, no input, no stimulation, not scrolling something relaxing. Actual quiet. Because remember, the problem isn't just that stress happens, it's that it never gets to finish. Give it somewhere to finish, and the tab starts to come down. Morning light exposure matters more than people think, too. Getting natural light within the first half hour of waking helps support that cortisol awakening response, the same one that's been flattened. It's a small habit with an outsized effect on that specific system. And this is the part that matters most. Naming it helps. Just understanding that your exhaustion has a mechanism, that it isn't a character flaw, changes how your brain relates to the fatigue itself. A lot of the shame millennials carry around being tired, around not having the same stamina their parents seem to have, comes from thinking it's personal. It's not personal, it's biological, and biological things can shift. So here's where that leaves us. Millennials didn't get burnt out because they're weaker. They got burnt out because they grew up inside a set of conditions, economic instability from childhood, an always on digital environment, and a stress system that eventually had to go quiet just to survive the load. That's not a flaw in the generation. That's a body doing exactly what it was built to do in an environment it was never built for. If this explains something you've been feeling for years and never had words for, that's the whole point. You're not broken. Your nervous system just has a very specific story to tell, and now you know how to read it. If you want to go deeper on this, there's another video where I break down exactly what chronic stress does to memory and focus, the actual brain fog millennials describe, and why it hits so much harder in your late 20s and 30s. That one connects directly to everything we just covered. Go watch that next.